All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Megan Petza. I work at the Graduate School, or I'm Director of Graduate Student Administration, and I lead our Timely Topics series, and I'm also one of your presenters today, along with Kim Curry, who I will turn it over to in just a second. Before we get started, I just want to do a couple quick housekeeping reminders. The first one is that we are recording today's session. We'll do that throughout the presentation, and then when we get to any time that's left for Q&A at the end, we'll turn the recording off at that point. But we will share a copy of the video and the slides and any other links or resources that are mentioned. We'll gather those up and share those with everybody who signed up. Usually early next week is when we get that out to you. And then in the chat, I also put a link to our Timely Topics page. If you missed that email, if you are interested in any of our previous sessions, you can always find the materials on that webpage as well, along with session descriptions and links to sign up for the upcoming sessions as well. The next one after today is on making sure your research is accessible, really meaning your thesis or dissertation meets the web accessibility law that is going into effect in April. So that's going to be done by UConn's accessibility expert, Karen Skidlarek. And if you are planning on graduating, anyone should attend. But particularly if you're planning on graduating this May, there's going to be some really good information in there just to make sure you're setting up your final dissertation in a way that's going to be accessible for everyone to access. All right, so Kim, do you want to introduce yourself and then
Sure.
dive
Sure.
in?
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Curry, and I'm the Director of Graduate Student and Postdoctoral Support here in the Graduate School. It is a pleasure to work with my colleague, Megan Petza, and I want to shout out all of our other graduate school colleagues that are on the call today. Thank you for your support. So you are not an imposter, we promise. Today, we hope to kind of establish a conversation surrounding this feeling of imposter phenomenon. It's also known as imposter syndrome, but we're not going to call it a syndrome because it's really not a diagnosis. It's a very common experience. And hopefully by the conclusion of today's presentation and discussion, we'll all have a better idea of what imposter phenomenon is and how to manage it. So we have a really rough agenda. It's pretty simplistic. We're going to talk about the terms associated with imposter phenomenon, talk a little bit about the research. We'll examine imposter phenomenon and how it actually manifests in the lives of graduate students, talk about strategies to manage it, and then we'll talk about resources. So to get us started, we're going to have a little imposter polling. And so if you're familiar with using Mentimeter, we're going to, throughout today's session, have some Mentimeter polling that takes place. So if you'd like to participate, you can scan the QR code or go to menti.com and input the code. And respond to the initial prompt, which is, what triggers your imposter feelings the most? And of course, your participation is voluntary and your answers are anonymous. The options are, in terms of triggering imposter feelings, starting new projects, receiving positive feedback, comparing to others' achievements, and facing unexpected challenges. Thank you for everyone that's participating. It's really cool to get this feedback in real time. Thank you. We'll let another few seconds go by so others can respond. Thank you for everyone who's participating. Okay, so if we just take a look at the overwhelming response is in the area of comparing ourselves to others' achievements. And I tell you what, the comparison, they say, is a thief of joy. And it's so important to think about how others' achievement makes us feel like imposters. Imposter phenomenon is not something that I am free from. Even at my big age, it's something that I still have to manage. So thank you for your honesty and transparency in this poll. We will come back to do some imposter polling throughout today. So let's go back to our slides. What is imposter phenomenon? Megan, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, so the short version, it's feeling like an imposter. It's feeling like you are a fraud, like someone who does not deserve the accolades you're getting, like you're not meant to be here. The longer version is that it was originally defined in 1978 by Clance and Imes, and they were identifying this feeling in the context of high achieving women and later broadened their definition to include men as well. Since then, what we have found is the number that keeps getting thrown around is 70%. 70% of successful people experience these feelings of being an imposter, including the majority of graduate students. Imposter phenomenon is also prevalent among ethnic minorities. These feelings aren't happening in a vacuum. There are a lot of things that contribute to it. There are a lot of ways to manage it as well. We're going to kind of talk about both of those as we kind of get into this, but we're just kind of quickly doing an overview of what this term is. It's also particularly high among doctoral students. Almost all doctoral students have it. So when we are comparing ourselves to others, like Kim said, comparison is the thief of joy. Everyone is coming in and feeling in a really similar way, which hopefully we can kind of all find some validation in. It's particularly common around women, like we kind of talked about earlier. And then the quote that Kim had put in here is, for many women, feeling like an outsider isn't an illusion. It's the result of systemic bias and exclusion. So again, these feelings are happening. They're also not happening in a vacuum. There are a lot of things contributing to them that we're going to talk about a little bit more as well.
Okay, imposter phenomenon. Recognition, it's interesting how imposter phenomenon, feelings of imposter phenomenon can be triggered by someone else's performance. And studies show that students with imposter phenomenon that focus on the recognition of others and external feedback instead of measuring their own ability, that is one of the solutions or ways to manage imposter phenomenon. It's not about the external or comparing yourself to what others are doing, but to recognize your own success. Here in the graduate school, we meet with graduate students who are facing different challenges in their experience, and often imposter phenomenon comes up in our conversations in different ways. However, many of you are in lab settings where presentations are made, or it's very easy to compare your performance to someone else's performance. And often when we're talking about the challenges in a lab setting, we often come back to, well, my PI gave me this feedback, but gave someone else other feedback or little feedback. And that experience is very triggering and very triggering of this feeling like maybe a student doesn't measure up to someone else's performance. So we want to talk about today focusing on your own achievements. If you've been admitted to a graduate program, it's not by mistake. It's the reward for hard work that you've already invested. Yes, there will be challenges in graduate school, and we're going to try to normalize that experience. However, it is challenging by design, but the challenge is not to confirm that you're not worthy of being here. So please, we're going to hopefully walk away with some good tips. And one of them is to not measure yourself against others and to not put so much value in the external feedback. Megan talked about graduate student experience of imposter phenomenon. And that is because graduate school is riddled with lots of challenges, including coursework, the competitive academic environment, very low levels of social support. And that is something that we here in the graduate school are exploring. How do we resolve these challenges? But all of these things contribute to a very tough experience by design. If you're feeling as if if you're feeling as if you are an imposter, some of that is systemic. Okay. And this is something that we are addressing or trying to address here in the graduate school. When consciously struggling to meet the demands of their studies, many may consider themselves imposters, but we say today you are not an imposter. I see a question popping up here in the chat. How do we grow and improve without taking external feedback seriously? That's a great question. And I believe that there is external feedback, especially from your advisor or your PI, is important. Please hear me. I am not in any way saying it is unimportant, but I do believe that sometimes what someone shares as feedback and what a student internalizes is misaligned. Your advisor or your PI, their goal is to help you be better, to be a better researcher, to be a better student, a better academic, a better professional. And so the feedback that is provided is not meant to demoralize you. It is supposed to be constructive. And if for some reason a student is internalizing that constructive feedback in such a way that it's damaging, then we need to talk about how to properly frame the feedback that's been received. So thank you, Mary Catherine, for that question. It's not that you shouldn't take the feedback seriously, but it shouldn't alter your perception of yourself. Constructive feedback is critical to this process. However, the feedback should not be internalized or interpreted in such a way that it demoralizes or creates imposter feelings. Thank you for that question.
Okay, so some of the ways that imposter phenomenon sort of manifests these symptoms, the main one is feeling like you're a fraud, that your success is not because of your abilities, that it is a fluke, it is luck, it is a mistake, all of that. All those feelings that are not true, but these are stories that we sometimes find ourselves telling ourselves. Feeling unworthy of the praise that you receive based on your capabilities, which can then again, feeling like you don't deserve it, feeling like it's not true, leading to increased anxiety and stress. So then what does this kind of look like specifically for graduate students? Again, kind of Kim touched on this already, feeling like you don't deserve to have gotten into this program, that your admission was a fluke, that it wasn't, it was a down year, it was this, it was that. That is not true. You would not be here if you were not worthy of being here, if you were not an excellent student, if you did not have the ability to be successful in this program, which does not mean that it's not going to be hard. Not believing positive feedback, kind of taking everything that someone gives you with a grain of salt. Kim was talking before that she's not free of imposter phenomenon feelings, neither am I. But just recently someone was like, oh, great job. And I was like, that's not true. Like, they don't believe it. I don't believe it. They don't mean it. You're kind of always combating some of this. And you can have a focus on perfectionism as well. Sometimes that trying to be perfect, trying to avoid any sort of misstep, it sort of builds it up. Like I'm always telling my kids who are young, and hopefully we'll never have imposter phenomenon feelings, although that seems unlikely, that it's okay to make mistakes, that this is not where our worth or our value is coming from. But in an academic environment, sometimes if you're not getting a lot of feedback, or if you're only getting constructive feedback, it can be really hard not to try to focus on being perfect in this context. And it can also be a lack of confidence in your ability to succeed in this environment as well.
So we have provided the Clarence Imposter Phenomenon scale or test, and it's a battery of about 30 to 40 prompts, where on a scale of 1 to 5, from 1 meaning not at all, and 5 being very true, to what degree can you relate to the questions or the prompts of the Clarence Imposter Phenomenon scale? We are going to include this link so that when you receive our slides, you may want to complete the entire inventory. But for the sake of today, we have kind of plucked out a few of these questions, and we're going to use the Mentimeter poll again so that we can kind of share together. where everyone is on a couple of these prompts. However, a score of between 61 to 80, if you do the entire inventory, indicates that a person may frequently feel imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon. So I'm going to stop sharing here so we can go back to our Mentimeter. And if everyone who wishes to participate could participate now on the prompt, I can give the impression that I am more competent than I really am. Again, your responses are anonymous. Hopefully, this is at least creating a sense of community. We are all experiencing the same feelings in our relative settings. Is anyone familiar with this GIF from the Gilded Age? Oh my goodness, great show. And a great storyline, just by the way. Me too, Kathleen. Okay, just a couple more seconds for folks to respond to this prompt. And as we can see, perhaps it's just the nature of the audience today that everyone is in the sometimes, often to very true response ranges, that you feel that you can give the impression that you're more competent than you really are. I want to reframe and say you are competent. It's not that you appear competent, you are competent. And if you are feeling as if you are an imposter and you're not as competent as you're conveying to others, then we should talk about that. You can start that conversation here in the graduate school. And there are other places across campus that will help you deconstruct this feeling. Thank you to everyone who responded. Let's move on to the next prompt. When people praise me for something I have accomplished, I'm afraid I won't be able to live up to their expectations of me in the future. Wow, very true. Okay, rarely. Thank you, everyone who's participating. Definitely need help. I love the transparency and sharing in the chat. Thank you, everyone. We're all facing the same challenges. Megan mentioned this a few minutes ago. Receiving praise for some is even a challenge, a trigger for imposter feelings. So when others get praise, it triggers imposter feelings. But when you get praise, it also triggers imposter feelings. Hopefully deconstructing this is going to help many of you recognize the imposter feelings really are just that, feelings that we need to let go. Thank you, everyone. The next prompt, again from the Clance scale. I sometimes think I obtained my position or gained present success because I happened to be in the right place at the right time or I knew the right people. It's not because of your talent or your ability. It's because of luck in some way. Okay, to the folks that are saying rarely, the person saying rarely, good for you. Very true. Often, sometimes, the majority of the respondents are in that sometimes to very true range. But the question is why? Are we living in systems designed to make us feel this way, as if we haven't earned the things that we have accomplished? Very, very interesting data and feedback. Thank you to the folks that have responded. I think I have one more. This is one more prompt from the Clance scale. I tend to remember the incidents in which I have not done my best more than those I have done my best. I can relate to this. Zakun, thank you for that feedback in the chat. I can't see it just yet, but I'm going to come back to all of these comments in the chat. boy, oh boy, that one time you slipped up in a presentation lives with you forever. And yet, all of the other remarkable things that you've done since then don't come to mind as readily. These are imposter feelings. And we have to kind of identify them, examine them, put them in their proper place, and learn to bounce back from these feelings. Thank you, everyone who's participated. Okay, let me go back to our slides. Oh boy, sorry. That keeps taking me to the beginning. Okay.
Okay, so I'm just quickly looking at the comments that are coming in through the chat. And
Oh
again,
yeah,
it's
thank
there's
you.
definitely a sense of community around this, right? Like we are having similar experiences, even if it's not presenting in exactly the same way.
That's
You're
right.
getting that praise and being like, they didn't mean it. This is a boilerplate email that's not specific to me, even though I'm sure it was. But you have that instinctive just that knee-jerk reaction to be like, this, it's not me, it's not true, it's not enough. And again, we're hoping to kind of deconstruct that. Can't fix it all in an hour, but hopefully giving that sense of community and talking a little bit about how we can hopefully all manage it individually and together as well. So again, where are these feelings coming from? Like what causes probably all of us here, that's why you signed up for this session, right, to have these imposter phenomenon feelings. So some of that is individual tendencies. If you have, a history of perfectionism, or if you are naturally anxious, like that comes out a little bit more. This is one of the ways that that can manifest. 25 to 30% of high achievers report feeling like imposters. And these are, again, I think I used this phrase earlier, but like stories we're telling ourselves, right? Like nature hates a vacuum. If we don't get any feedback on something we submit, we start telling ourselves a story to talk about why it wasn't good enough, why we are not good enough. We're sort of instinctively going to that place. But the stories we tell ourselves, it does not mean that they are true. And yes, I'm seeing some of the other individual tendencies mentioned in the chat. Absolutely, there's a lot of things that go into it, go into everything, right? Like we're talking about all the different places this can come from, all the different systems that can contribute to it. So this is just a very, very small snapshot here. And yes, no feedback often feels like bad feedback because that's the story we're telling ourselves, right? So then, again, where is this coming from? When in doubt, just blame your parents. I'm being facetious about that. But there is the research that we looked at shows that regardless of socioeconomic class, the environment that you grew up in, including how you were parented, can contribute to these feelings, to whether or not you're having them, to kind of how they might manifest a little bit. If you grew up in a home that really focused on grade related achievement, where grades were a correlation to your value a little bit, that can follow you through your life. If you had a lot of family pressure to succeed, kind of the same thing. First gen students in graduate school can really be at a disadvantage as well, which they can emphasize that a little bit differently. First gen students are actually at a disadvantage, so they can frequently suffer from imposter phenomenon feelings. But again, there's a reason for that. We talk about the hidden curriculum, which might be a phrase you're already familiar with, which is the idea that there's this kind of unwritten, intuitive, or intrinsic part of higher education where you only know it if you know it, which, if you know it, smooths your path a little bit. If you're coming into it and you don't know how these systems are working, that makes a harder path for you to travel right there. And it's, again, not because you're not worthy of being there, because you're not good enough to be there. It's because you are at a little bit of a disadvantage there. So again, it's not just particularly for first gen students, talking about them specifically for a minute. If you're having those feelings, it's not just that you might feel like an imposter, but you're not being an imposter, if that makes sense. It's the system is easier to navigate if you're not the first one in your family doing it. So do not discount those systemic issues that might be contributing to these feelings. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to dive into that a little bit more on the next slide.
Sure. Thank you, Megan. I'm looking at I'm reading, following the chat, and Mary Catherine shared that it's hard. I'm sorry, I just lost it. It's hard to not feel like your value is aligned with how productive, useful you are in a family and society. And I think that that is a really astute observation. We live in a society that values production, output, and it under prioritizes or undervalues rest, reflection, and so if you're feeling at all like your value is aligned with your productivity, that's not by accident. It's one of those systemic issues that's very common in the Western world where productivity is valued. However, there will be times as graduate students, and this is at the PhD level, the EDD level, the doctoral level, and the master's level, where you're not going to make progress. There'll be moments or lulls in production, and that is part of the learning experience. You all are students, and as students, there'll be times when your experiments work and times when they don't. All of that is considered data. There'll be times when you'll do really well in class and times when you struggle. That is part of the learning experience. So one of the things that Megan and I, as we were putting this together, wanted to talk about is, you know, to what degree are we experiencing imposter phenomenon, or are we being gaslit into believing that we should be more productive? Because that is what that's the value system that we live in. According to the research, we know that imposter syndrome or phenomenon puts the blame on individuals. It's funny how the system is designed to put the blame on us as individuals so that we constantly feel like we're on that wheel, that hamster wheel, and running and running and running and running to be productive. When really we may need to challenge the system and reframe what it means to be productive. Sometimes just learning without the desired outcome is part of the process. So without accounting for historical or cultural contexts, we are removing really the culprit for our sources of imposter phenomenon. Yes, we are often thinking about imposter phenomenon in light of the research as it relates to women of color and women in general. However, this is universal. Imposter syndrome directs our view towards fixing ourselves instead of challenging or fixing our environments. For those of you who have met with us here in the graduate school, I hope that you get a sense that we are challenging the system. Some of you are working really, really, really hard, and the system is not giving you the feedback or the support that you deserve. We hope to keep continuing to explore and deconstruct these systems that are causing us to have imposter phenomenon and causing us to doubt our ability. I just want to take a peek in the chat here. Yes, a lack of understanding of how systems work is frustrating. Yes, especially if our teachers or faculty are busy and unable to provide the help. If your advisors or your faculty are too busy to provide this kind of support, we here in the graduate school will. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge those that are neurodivergent may experience imposter phenomenon for different reasons and in a different way. And the system, though, is still at play, and we need to provide some additional guidance and support. I feel that it is difficult to separate conventional sources of imposter syndrome, anxiety, perfectionism from neurodivergent masking, trying to appear neurotypical, literally feeling like an imposter. Wow, Devin, thank you for sharing that feedback. I think that any conversation moving forward needs to take into account the experience of or what imposter phenomenon means to someone who might be feeling as if they're living as an imposter all the time. Thank you for bringing that point up. Let's see. I'm going to push forward. Okay, so we've talked about imposter phenomenon. We've talked about the feelings. We've talked about how it manifests, and we might have one more imposter poll interactive Menti to flush this out again. But now we're going to start moving towards building resilience. Okay, and living with imposter phenomenon, all of the good things I've put in green as a subtle way to signal that these are the things that we want to be working on. So let's start with the bad news. The bad news is imposter syndrome can undermine your academic goals and progress. It can impair your mental health and it can challenge your relationships. However, we don't need to let that happen. The good news is that practicing mindfulness and resilience building techniques can help you overcome imposter phenomenon. Now, you might be asking, Kim, why haven't you gotten over your imposter phenomenon feelings? Well, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. In fact, participating in timely topics is a source of imposter phenomenon for me. So I'm here and I'm trying to work through that with the support of my colleagues here in the graduate school. But we can work and we should actively be working on and on our resilience in managing imposter phenomenon. And the good news is resilience must be nurtured and practiced. We are hoping that this timely topic will kind of foster a sense of community among participants so that we can continue to support one another through this graduate school experience. Okay, I believe this is our last imposter poll, so please bear with me. Let's go back to our final Mentimeter. And the final prompt is, let's see, no. How does imposter phenomenon manifest for you? And this is a free response area. Um, thank you. I was going to say some thoughts are maybe stress, yes, anxiety, procrastination, task avoidance, thank you, crying, I could give you a hug, anxiety, heart racing, a sense of insecurity, the feeling of never being good enough. Oof, procrastination, that's a big one. Demotivation, takes criticism personally, feeling lonely. Yes, insomnia. What a beast. Doubt, self-invalidation. Oh my goodness. Procrastination and negative self-talk. Qualification of all positive feedback. Are you all seeing what I'm seeing? It's like we're in a situation where we cannot win. We get positive feedback. It's not helpful. We get negative feedback or the perception of negative feedback. That's not helpful. Please, I hope that moving forward, when we start to feel these feelings that seem very common, that we challenge, okay, what is going on here? Am I experiencing what I should be experiencing when someone gives me positive feedback? Or am I experiencing what I should be experiencing if I'm hearing something that's not 100% positive? How am I interpreting that and applying it to my life? Thank you, everyone who responded. Fatigue, that is so real. Anxiety for the future, fear of being judged. You all are all graduate students feeling these feelings. Hopefully, we can identify some sources of support for you. Thank you for all that you've shared. Stress, anxiety, insecurity, procrastination, demotivation, loneliness. We have a new activity here in the graduate school called Grad Chat. And Grad Chat is a very informal space for graduate students to come together and talk about issues related to being in graduate school. And the goal is to address the loneliness that can be this graduate school experience. Staying silent. You do not have to stay silent. Come participate in Grad Chat and enjoy the presence and community and fellowship of your fellow classmates and graduate school mates. Can't look at a mirror as feeling humiliated. Wow. I hope that the invitation to meet with us here in the graduate school is a real one, and I hope it's something that you all take advantage of so we can continue this conversation about imposter phenomenon. But I hope that you will also find others perhaps in the chat or in this space to build community with. because the isolation or feeling humiliated and staying silent is not productive. Thank you for everyone who participated there. Okay, going back to our slides. And I'm sorry that it looks like I'm going to have to advance them again. Thanks for your patience. Okay, Megan.
Okay, I think I've got the shortest slide on here, which is basically that, the good news is if 70% of successful people are experiencing imposter phenomenon or have experienced it at some point and are still successful, you will be too. Like, I hope that's one of the takeaways that you come away from today with, is that you're not the remaining 30%, promise. And then the quote that's on here is, one of the primary challenges that doctoral students face when entering graduate school is professional socialization. The process of transition from a learner to a researcher is akin to a rite of passage, requiring a liminal period of uncertainty, confusion, or doubt to achieve a change in identity, which just all kind of goes together to, I think, lead into our next slide, Kim,
Mhm.
which is that the context that you're in, it's hard.
Yes.
Kim, go ahead.
And it's hard by design. You all are specialists. You're training to be specialists in your respective fields. And that training is rigorous. It shouldn't be torturous, but it should be, and it is by design, challenging. So though it sounds overly simple, it's true. Graduate school isn't hard for you because you aren't worthy. It's just hard by design. Okay. And I don't know if it's helpful to hear that, but it's something that we will remind you of here in the graduate school. This is not an easy path that you've chosen, but you are equipped to be successful, especially as we talk about deconstructing the obstacles that are in the way, and making you feel like an imposter or not as productive or not worthy. In addition, doctoral students generally face multiple dilemmas, difficult coursework, competitive environment, low levels of social support. I believe that we coded this earlier, which contribute to the challenging and stressful doctoral phase. If you are a doctoral student and you are feeling stressed, that is the norm. And we are here, we and our campus partners are here to help you through that experience.
Okay. So one of the things that you can do is talk about it. Imposter phenomenon is kind of thriving in the silence, but there are so many people that are experiencing it. And just to talk about the comment in the chat where it's like, I'm the remaining 30%, to clarify that 70% statistic, it's that if you take 100 successful people, 70% of them have felt like a fraud, or 70 of them have felt like a fraud. The other 30 are just unicorns. They feel totally fine about their success, which great. We're so happy for them. But the majority of us are having those feelings where we feel like we don't deserve it. We're not getting this because of our abilities. Like, this is an accident. But again, those 70 people still super successful, as I think everybody here will be as well, or is already rather. So again, with so many graduate students feeling this way, you've sort of got a built-in community. If you are feeling this way, it is very likely that other people in your program, other friends of yours, are feeling this way as well, but nobody wants to talk about it, because I don't think anyone necessarily wants to be like, yeah, no, I definitely don't deserve to be here. And then if someone tells you, no, you definitely do, then you're like, well, I don't believe you. So again, you're kind of on that hamster wheel, this like catch-22 that we're in, where we're not believing what we're hearing. And if we don't hear it, we feel worse or exactly the same, equal levels of bad. But one of the things that we found in here is that discussing with a peer group can be most effective. Generally more effective than necessarily talking with your advisor, because sometimes with that power differential, you're not necessarily believing that good feedback, right? Like, we've heard that throughout today, that we're qualifying everything that we're hearing that is positive. So sometimes discussing with a peer group and kind of getting that validation of other people feeling like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing either, can be most effective in sort of bringing this out of the shadows a little bit, and finding community with your peers. And again, the quote that's on here, imposterism is fed by a lack of information about how much others are struggling or succeeding, and may be reduced when others are open about their feelings of self-doubt as well. Because again, everybody here, there's so many themes coming out, right? In the Mentimeter polls and in the chat, we're all having a similar experience. And one of the other things that is recommended is to lean on people outside of your typical circle. So, getting in touch with people that are outside of maybe necessarily your program or your field of study, it can be more effective. One of the ways that it can be more effective is that it can provide a little bit of a perspective. Because, academia is a really interesting environment. It can be kind of a consuming one in some ways, and it's a little bit different than other contexts that people are operating in. So kind of getting outside of this academic bubble sometimes can be really helpful to sort of remind ourselves that, again, the academic piece is one piece of who we are. It's something that you're doing. It's not all of who you are. And sometimes when you are so focused on it, which we know, doctoral study in particular, graduate study, all of it, can be really overwhelming. Like it is your identity right now, but not forever and not entirely. Kim, do you have anything you want to add there before I forget what's on the next slide?
Well, I think that you've hit on the major walk away, which is to be in community and to talk. We're so thrilled that all of you are here for today's timely topics. Clearly, this is a topic that is resonating with many of you, but this should not be the only conversation about imposter phenomenon. It's something that we can continue to, or we should continue to discuss and provide opportunities for gathering to talk about not just imposter phenomenon or imposter feelings, but just what it's like to be a graduate student. I think that some of the most productive and enjoyable conversations that I've witnessed are when graduate students meet across academic disciplines and they find unity and support in their common experience, regardless of their academic backgrounds. There's something very universal about this experience. And if you, as graduate students, met with other graduate students across the country, you'd find similarities as well. So there's something unique about this experience and coming together as a community to talk about the challenges and the successes. I think is something that that we, of course, 100% support and want to continue to do within our community. Community is the key. I guess is what I wanted to add. Megan, thank you. So be kind to yourself, and we mean it. Be kind to yourself. You are a human being. You are not a machine. You are brilliant, yes, but you are still a human being. So be kind to yourself. You deserve it. I think that if you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself, you wouldn't have many friends. So please use the same friendliness and kindness scale that you do with others on yourself. Celebrate your small wins. You made a presentation in your lab group and it was 5 minutes long, but it went well. Celebrate that. You overcame your fear of going to the library and asking a resource librarian for support. Celebrate that. You finally were able to make a meeting with your advisor that was productive. Celebrate that. Celebrating the small wins is critical. In terms of the area of mindfulness, I am a big fan of reframing. Sometimes once you recognize a pattern of thinking that is not helpful or productive or additive to you, if you can recognize it, reframe it and put the thought in a place that is helpful. Identify your thought patterns. Some of the Mentimeter polling showed very common responses to or the feelings of imposter syndrome or phenomenon. Well, when you're starting to recognize those things in yourself and in others, gently point them out to yourself and redirect. Abandon perfectionism. There is no such thing as perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. Even if there are others pushing you to believe that there's a such thing as perfectionism, it does not exist. You are who you are. You are a gift to this community, and you are perfect as you are, but none of us are perfect. So abandon that idea. One of the researched techniques for resilience, building resilience, is to perform a SWOT analysis on yourself. What is a SWOT analysis? This is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and the T is the threat, and the threat is imposter phenomenon. What are your strengths? I wonder to what degree you all could put in the chat your strengths. If everyone could take a moment to type in the chat one of your strengths, I'd love to see what the responses are. And I'd love for each of us to see what others respond. Would you mind doing that? What is a strength that you have?
That's a great
I'm
question,
going to
Kim.
start with
It's
mine.
always easier to come up with the weaknesses. It's like that's where my mind first went. But I'm like, no, that's why we're doing the strengths because it's important.
It's so easy to think of your weaknesses. Adaptable, love it. Punctuality. All right, Catherine, thank you. Arwa, adaptability is key. Being disciplined and reflective. Thank you. Masking with humor. Kathleen, maybe that's where I'm going. Humor, me too. Reflective. Zakun, thank you. Good with people. Thank you. Sound like a stupid question, but how do we know what a strength is? Is it something I think that I have, but it may not be what others think of me? Oh, Catherine, what a great question. Does anybody want to support Catherine on this? Catherine asks, how do we know what a strength is? Is it something that I think I have, but it may not be what others think of me? We have a great community here. I'm going to pose that to the group. Humor, reflective, think you good with people, stubborn. Sometimes being stubborn is a strength. I tell my sister that about my niece all the time. She is willful and headstrong. I think it's a strength because she's not going to be pushed into doing something that she doesn't want to do. Stubborn, getting back on the horse. Yes, this was difficult to think. Oh, it was difficult to think of a strength. Oh, folks, we have work to do. We should be able to inventory and recognize our strengths. What you view as a personal strength does not have to be the same, yes, as what others think is a strength. I agree with that. Thank you, Catherine. You can totally have a strength that no one knows about. Yes, it might just not be a loud part of your brand. Very true. Introspective, Devin. Thank you. That is a strength. I'm reflective, determined, and zealous, but maybe it's not as much as others. It doesn't have to be in comparison to others. It is about you, Mary Catherine. So we don't care about how you compare on that scale to others. It's just about you recognizing your strength. Thank you, everyone who put a comment in the chat. And if it was difficult for you, Zakun is inviting us all over because he's good at cooking. Thank you, Zakun. Um, that is humor, or a bad attempt at humor. If it was difficult or challenging for you to come up with strengths, that is going to be part of your homework, is to identify your strengths. Maybe perform the SWOT analysis, skip the W, and just do the strengths, opportunities, and the imposter phenomenon threats. Because you all are so talented and so gifted. I hate to think that you cannot come up with strengths for yourselves. Be honest about your areas of improvement. We all have areas of improvement. Okay, so it's okay to be honest about those areas of improvement, but don't be so critical of yourself that all you have are areas of improvement without a celebration or acknowledgement of your strengths. And then, of course, you want to identify legitimate areas of growth. And for most of you in an academic setting, there are areas of growth, and that's completely appropriate.
Kim, there was one more comment in the chat that I just wanted to highlight before we move on.
Sure.
Deborah says, a strength helps me resist stress. In other words, sleep hygiene is a really important strength for me because it keeps me sane. And I thought that was just a really good point because, I love that you did this in the chat, Kim, having everyone name your strengths, like leaning into that is a way to combat the other loud voices that sometimes we're letting drown out our strengths. And, it can be hard to come up with your strengths. And I think that is a muscle that we all need to work on building a little bit because it is going to counteract some of the other stories we're telling ourselves about how we don't deserve to be here. We're not working as hard as others, and leaning into those strengths, even if it is a strength like someone else was like, I'm really good at falling asleep. Like, that's great. I envy you. Um, that is so important for our health and well-being. And again, is going to help counteract some of the negative self-talk and some of the as someone had mentioned, self-sabotage earlier too. Counteract that. So
Yes,
naming
you're
these strengths
absolutely
and
right.
then leaning into them and honoring them, I think is just a really important point, Deborah.
Megan, I don't know if you feel this way, but the chat is live. I have never seen a more live chat, and
Same.
I love it. It's wonderful the support that you all are offering one another, and lending to this conversation, community building opportunity. So we've mentioned the graduate school's grad chat. Yes, the grad chat as a platform is growing. We have some we definitely have some opportunity there when we're talking about a SWOT analysis of grad chat. But we're not going to abandon it because we do believe that graduate students need a space where they can be themselves, talk to one another, and support one another. So it is informal, it's low stakes. We do not record grad chat. So you don't have to worry about being recorded and somehow what you've said in a grad chat space be used again inappropriately. The aim is to foster a sense of community. So once you receive their slides, click on the grad chat link and it will take you to the dates and topics. However, we are also open to talking about whatever is important to the graduate community. So if you want to talk about something other than what is prescribed on a certain day, you're welcome to. Teaching Tuesdays is offered through the for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, or CETL, and it's another space where if teaching is your future or if teaching is your current assignment, you can find support on how to be a great teacher among other teachers. We have in the graduate school Graduate Student Appreciation Week events coming the first week of April, I believe. And these events range from social to career to overall success. We even have an international food festival coming. Thank you, Melanie. April 6th through the 10th. Come and fellowship with your fellow graduate students. There are a range of events that week to celebrate you and support you. Yes, please come join us. The Graduate Student Senate is another space where you can find you can find community. The Graduate Student Senate has been really active in putting together social events, so participate, meet someone new, build your social network, find that network of support and community that really benefits us all and helps us overcome imposter feelings. And then there's a list of other community opportunities. The chat has been going, and I can't tell. Um, let's see. Most important tip. I don't
There's a
recommend.
lot
Okay.
about sleep.
Oh, okay.
I also was a great sleeper before I had kids. It's like, let me tell you how that undoes it.
Okay. Thanks for catching me up. Yes, I agree, Megan. The Graduate Employee Union, or the GEU, is another great community space. There are spaces to find a sense of community. Timely Topics is a space for community. There is an article here written by a colleague, a UConn alum, about friendship in academia that we highly recommend. We're not going to spend time talking about it here, but please spend a few minutes exploring that resource as well.
And then a few of the campus supports as well, kind of the more formal ones a little bit. Student health and wellness. Shaw understands the demands of graduate school can be overwhelming. Personal wellness often gets overlooked in the process. So Shaw is here to offer support to graduate students in a variety of ways. They have a lot of different programs. They have the interpersonal group for graduate students, which is, there's a screen, that's the screenshot on here. They also offer mental health support as well. They have resources, but also counselors that you're able to access as part of your, your graduate student status. You're paying that student health fee that shows up on your fee bill. Please use these resources. And we definitely will share the slides with everyone.
Yes.
Don't worry about that. You'll get them early next week. So definitely take advantage of some of those more formal supports. If you are a graduate assistant, you also have access to the employee assistance program. which I'm just writing down to make sure to give you that link as well. So that they help with a lot of different issues. It's free. It's included as a benefit of your GA status. Um, a certain number of counseling sessions is another thing that they offer there. So just again, things to check out to again help manage some of the ways that we're feeling. Um, the graduate student postdoctoral affairs team, that's the team Kim and I are on, and Melanie as well. We always say the graduate school is the place to go when you don't know where to go. So we are here to help you. Kim did not mention this, but grad chat is led by her, so she's wonderful. Obviously you're going to want to go to those sessions. And like I said, she's our director of graduate student postdoctoral support, so she is a fantastic person to come to talk with as a starting point for how to move forward. We're the place to go when you don't know where to go. That is a good tagline for us. So we definitely, like Kim said before, these are real invitations. Like, please reach out to us. We'll help you with those systems. We'll help you hopefully manage some of these feelings, because graduate school is hard, and we very much know that.
Can we take a moment to shout out our GA? Well, one of our GAs, but the GA on the student support side, Michael Nyarko. Michael is a first-year student in the HESA program. He does a lot of work in supporting all of us in our programming, but he also is the head or the lead on the Graduate Student Appreciation Week, and he has some fantastic events planned. So please not only come support Michael as a graduate student, but the events are designed with you all in mind, and he's done a fantastic job. So just want to shout out Michael. As we wrap up, when you get the slides, we will have a nice cleaned up bibliography, because as graduate students, you might want to do a little more research. Yes,
We
Michael
just didn't
is
have time to
wonderful.
clean this up before today. The snow, you know.
But we are thrilled that you all were here. We have a couple minutes for questions and answers. If you want to ask a question in the chat or take yourself off of mute and ask a question, we welcome that now.